Hey everyone, kicking off the week to talk about dysphoria. I know it's a repeat topic, but the way that we experience these things can develop over time, and also hopefully we also develop new coping strategies. So I am hoping that this video will be different from the last video that I made. So very briefly, what is dysphoria? Dysphoria so dysphoria in general is a strong sense of discontent, specifically gender dysphoria, as related to issues of gender expression and gender identity, is the discontent and also specifically discomfort that a trans or genderqueer, gender nonconforming person experiences in relation to both the gendered aspects of their body and or the gendered roles that they are supposed to fill in society and the world around them. And it's not just kind of like mildly upset. Dysphoria can be extremely acute and can trigger depression and other mental disorders, although there are a lot of people who would like for it itself to not be classified as a mental disorder, despite the fact that it currently is. Anyway, so I like to stress the physical side of dysphoria because I think for me that's what separates it from a lot of other things and other stressors and discomforts in life in general. So when I talk about dysphoria, I usually mean that I'm not only particularly unhappy, but that I'm also physically very uncomfortable, and that may be expressed in a number of ways. For me, a lot of the time, it's like a kind of a feeling of itching or being unclean, or like something is crawling on my skin. Yeah, so things that trigger dysphoria for me. I mean, so many things. We live in a very, very, very gendered world. But the ones that specifically trigger bad dysphoria that tends more towards the physical side would be seeing shirtless men, having people look at me weirdly in bathrooms, especially in women's bathrooms, because I'm already sort of uncomfortable to be there in the first place, and then I don't like people looking at me like I don't belong there / am a threat, because I know that I don't belong there, but I'm not a threat, and it can be very confusing. Then also, like looking at myself in the shower or getting dressed or undressed, which I just try to avoid doing, and wearing tight clothing. So the coping strategies I have for all of those are fairly simple. If I'm going to be in a formal setting, I usually bind. I don't bind a lot otherwise, just because that tends to fall under the category of tight clothing, which is like one of the worst things for my dysphoria. I've been using men's bathrooms more frequently. That's still only sometimes because I have to feel safe enough, using that particular bathroom. I will probably feel less dysphoric and more physically comfortable if I use a men's bathroom, but I may therefore feel more anxious and like worried about my personal safety. So that's a balancing act that I have to do. Here at school, I usually will use whichever bathroom I feel like using. I'm pretty okay with using the men's bathrooms here. In public restrooms, that's like a little bit more dicey. Then I also wear comfortable, not incredibly baggy, but like loose-fitting clothing. And it's all clothing that I've had for a decent amount of time, so I'm familiar with it, and none of it is like really new and stiff. And then the newest strategy that I've developed is I don't really have a good label for it. I've been calling it disownership, and it's basically kind of glorified ignoring, but it's ignoring in a way that feels good and empowering for me. So a lot of my dysphoria revolves around my chest, and so something I've started doing a lot this fall is that there are situations and times and places when I will just consciously ignore or blot out the fact that I have a female chest and will behave as though I do not. And although that doesn't really get rid of the reality, it does sometimes create a brief period in which I feel a little bit less trapped and a little bit more free. And that is even better if there are people around me, if I'm in an environment where I'm comfortable and I know that the people around me are responding to me in that way, so they're not basing any of their interactions off of, like, sort of the assumption of a female body. I have a really great roommate here at school in terms of that. Both of us, just, like, change in the room and nobody really cares, which is a really great feeling. And I've been going to a queer men's discussion group every Sunday, which I think I've mentioned before. And I actually, after the first time, I haven't been finding going to that, and that's actually been pretty good. I go there, and it's a place to sort of enact masculinity in a way that I'm comfortable, but I'm also receiving recognition in a way that's very affirming. So yes, sorry that this dragged on a little bit. I hope it was interesting. I'm sorry it's a day late, and I look forward to seeing y'all next week.